You thought COVID was behind you. You got infected, you got vaccinated, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. And you decided that your immune system now knows this virus by face and is ready to meet it. Now let me tell you about a virus that was hiding inside a single person, quietly, invisibly, for several years. During that time, it accumulated 75 mutations, 75. And when it finally emerged, your immune system did not recognize it. Its name is BA.3.2. Scientists gave it the nickname Cicada, after the insect that lives underground for years, then suddenly appears everywhere at once. As of April 2026, it has been detected in 33 countries and 31 U.S. states. It is spreading. And experts from the CDC are saying directly they expect a new wave in the coming months. Stay with me, because what I am about to tell you about the mechanism of this virus will change how you think about your immunity, and at the end, exactly what to do right now. Before we talk about why this matters for you, let's understand where Cicada came from. Because the story of its origin is simultaneously a scientific detective story and a warning about what we didn't know about viruses. BA.3.2 descends from BA.3, a branch of Omicron that nearly disappeared back in 2022. Most virologists considered it an evolutionary dead end, and then, in November 2024 in South Africa, it reappears, but completely different. How is this possible? Scientists propose the following. For several years, BA.3 evolved silently inside a single chronically infected person, most likely someone with immune deficiency. Under these conditions, the virus is not eliminated, but it doesn't spread either. It stays inside a body incubator, and slowly, under constant pressure from the host's immune system, accumulates mutation after mutation. Scientists call this a saltation event, a sudden evolutionary leap. Instead of evolving gradually, one mutation at a time, the virus makes a sharp evolutionary jump and emerges into the world as a fundamentally different pathogen. 75 mutations in the spike protein, the very protein you have seen in all the COVID illustrations, and which is the primary target for both immunity and vaccines. And this is where the most important part begins. What exactly those 75 mutations do to your immunity, and why the 2025 to 2026 vaccines may not fully protect you from this variant. Here is the mechanism you need to understand, and which most media outlets explain inaccurately or not at all. When you had COVID or got vaccinated, your immune system produced antibodies. Antibodies are specialized proteins that memorize the shape of the spike protein of whichever variant you were infected with, or which was contained in the vaccine. They know the exact three-dimensional shape of that spike, the way a key knows its lock, and when the same virus appears again, they recognize it immediately and neutralize it. But what happens when the spike changes its shape 75 times? Molecular studies from the Gavi laboratory show that many of BA.3.2's mutations are concentrated precisely in those regions of the spike that are the targets of neutralizing antibodies. This means the virus partially escapes from your antibodies. They try to bind to the familiar lock, but the lock has changed and the key no longer fits as precisely as before. This process is called immune escape, and BA.3.2 demonstrates it to a significant degree. The 2025 to 2026 vaccines were developed against the JN.1 lineage, the variant that dominated in 2024. BA.3.2 is genetically so distant from JN.1 that in laboratory tests it shows reduced neutralization by these vaccines. But wait, this does not mean vaccines are useless. Quite the opposite. And here is why it is important to understand this right now. There is something about the immune system that most people don't know, and it is precisely what genuinely protects you from severe illness, even from a new variant. I will explain this in a moment, but first, the symptoms. The symptoms of BA.3.2 are broadly similar to other Omicron variants that have circulated in recent years. According to the CDC and WHO, cough, nasal congestion, sore throat, fatigue, headache, fever, body aches. But there are several features worth knowing about. First, immune escape means you can get infected even if you have immunity from a previous infection or vaccination. This does not mean you will become severely ill, but you may carry the infection and not immediately realize it is COVID rather than a common cold or flu. Second, COVID symptoms in 2026 are difficult to distinguish from flu or allergy symptoms without a test. All three conditions present a similar picture. The only reliable way to know is a test. Third, people with chronic conditions, those over 65, with diabetes, cardiovascular disease, or immune deficiency remain at elevated risk even from variants that cause mild illness in most people. And now, what I promised. Why, despite 75 mutations and immune escape, vaccination still matters. And this is not just words. There is specific biology behind it that very few people explain. Most people, when they think about immune protection from COVID, think about antibodies. This is logical. They receive the most media coverage. But antibodies are only one layer of immune protection, and when it comes to immune escape, not the most important one. Let me explain. Antibodies work on the front line. They intercept the virus before it enters a cell. They are fast, specific, and they are precisely what declines with the immune escape of new variants. But there is a second layer, T cells. They don't stop the virus from entering a cell. Instead, they find already infected cells and destroy them, preventing the virus from multiplying. And here is what is critically important. T cells recognize not only the spike protein, but many other parts of the virus that change far more slowly than the spike. This is precisely why scientists from the CDC and WHO are unanimous. Despite reduced antibody response against BA.3.2, vaccination still provides significant protection against severe disease, hospitalization, and death. Your T cells remember COVID. They are still protecting you, even when antibodies fall short. According to the WHO, current COVID-19 vaccines are expected to continue providing protection against severe disease. These are not reassuring words. This is biology. But here is something worth thinking about personally, especially if you haven't been vaccinated this season or haven't had a booster in a long time, and this connects directly to when exactly the next wave is expected. Let's talk about the practical question that concerns most people: when to expect a new wave and how serious it will be. According to CDC data from April 2026, Cicada currently represents a small share of total COVID infections in the US, but it is gaining momentum. Carl Fichtenbaum from the University of Cincinnati said directly, "We expect that in the next few months we will probably see a new wave, and oftentimes that new wave is associated with a strain like Cicada." How serious will this wave be? The honest answer, we don't know. COVID is unpredictable. 5 years of its history have demonstrated that. There are factors that may limit Cicada's spread. Despite its high immune escape capability, there are signs that it may be less efficient at infecting cells than some previous variants. This may be an evolutionary trade-off, better at evading immunity but slower to replicate. But there are also risk factors. Summer is travel season. People gather in enclosed air-conditioned spaces. Booster vaccination coverage in most countries has declined. Cicada is genetically distant from the variant targeted by current vaccines. COVID vaccines are typically updated in summer, and it is quite possible that the autumn-winter 2026 vaccine composition will account for Cicada. Follow updates from WHO and CDC, and now, the most important part. Specifically what to do right now, not abstract advice, concrete steps. Here is what science says about concrete steps, honestly and without unnecessary panic. First, if you have not been vaccinated in the 2025 to 2026 season, this is a reasonable time to speak with a doctor about a booster, especially if you are in a risk group, over 65, with chronic conditions, immune deficiency. T-cell immunity is strengthened with each vaccination, and this is real protection even against BA.3.2.2. Test when you have symptoms. In 2026, COVID symptoms are practically indistinguishable from flu and the common cold without a test. If you develop a fever, cough, or fatigue, get tested. This matters not only for you, but for the people around you who may be in a risk group. Third, ventilation and masks in high-risk situations. This sounds familiar, but it works. The virus spreads through the air in poorly ventilated spaces. If you are planning a trip, attending a large event, or are near people in a risk group, a mask is simple and proven protection. Fourth, follow vaccine updates. In summer 2026, an updated COVID vaccine will likely become available. Based on the history of previous years, it will be adapted to dominant variants, potentially including Cicada. The decision about vaccination is made together with a doctor based on your health status. And finally, the most important thing I want to say, Cicada is not 2020. This is not the scenario we lived through 5 years ago. Humanity now has an immune foundation from illness and from vaccines that didn't exist back then. There are treatments, there is diagnostics, there is an understanding of the virus that didn't exist at the beginning. This does not mean ignore it. It means be informed and act wisely. I want to end this conversation from the same point where I began. You thought COVID was behind you. And in a sense, you are right. The COVID that paralyzed the world in 2020 is behind us. But the virus continues to evolve. This is not a threat and not panic. It is a biological fact. Viruses mutate, they adapt. And Cicada is simply the next reminder that SARS-CoV-2 has not gone anywhere. What has changed compared to 2020 is us. We have immunity, we have vaccines, we have treatments, we have understanding, and we have science, tracking every mutation in real time and warning us in advance. Cicada has already been noticed. It is already being monitored. This is precisely what a public health system should do, and this time it is doing it. I researched science and translate it into human language. All sources are in the description below. Until next time, be informed and don't be afraid.